Hello, and welcome to episode 12 of the Roadkill Entertainment Video Village podcast. My name is Jay Byrne. I am the creator, I guess, of Roadkill Entertainment, if you want to call me that. I started it, so I guess I'm the creator. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? This is a really weird one because I recorded an entire podcast to put up for today, and it is gone. The podcast did not record properly. I tried to record outside because it was a little uncomfortably warm in this house right now to sit down and record a podcast, but that's okay. So here I am basically repeating what I already did, although what I did was pretty slapshot and terrible, so it's probably a good idea that I re-recorded it anyway, and I'm going to grab a sip of water. All right. So I'll start off with the with Blu-ray and DVD, Blu-ray reviews for this episode, and we'll do some Scream Factory because those always go over well. Sleepaway Camp. Scream Factory just put out Sleepaway Camp on Blu-ray, and I got to tell you, it is a beautiful transfer. It's a brand new 2K scan from the original negative. They even have a featurette on the Blu-ray itself showing you the scanning process and how that went. So it's pretty damn awesome. The colors are beautiful. It's the complete uncut version of the movie, which hasn't been available since like HBO and like the original like VHS release, which was like a media home video release. So I can't recommend this release highly enough. It's definitely worth it if you're a fan of Sleepaway Camp. It's got the reverse cover art like they all do with the original poster art and the new commissioned artwork that they did. With the new commissioned artwork is actually pretty damn cool. There's like a close to an hour-long featurette on the making of Sleepaway Camp with interviews with Felissa Rose and the director and most of the key players, actually. So that's really, really cool. It's a great release. Awesome picture quality. Some people complain about Scream Factories. They have compression issues from time to time, and some people will complain about how they look, the compression looks on the actual discs. Personally, I don't see any major issues. I think the company that they use isn't as good as some of the companies they could use, but you know what? I mean, the stuff that they're releasing kind of makes up for it because it is... they're putting out stuff that nobody cares about. We care about as genre fans, but most people don't give a crap about them. But so Sleepaway Camp's awesome. Pick up Sleepaway Camp. Another Scream Factory release that came out on Blu-ray that looks pretty damn good for what it is a movie called The Final Terror from 1983. I think the date on the film is 83. It's a really good release of this movie. The best this movie has ever looked. Now, don't take that as it's an amazing like demo quality release or anything like that, because the film was actually sourced from, I think, 4 different theatrical prints. They basically took the best reels from each print and used that to source their special edition. So it's always been a dark movie, so the movie's still a dark movie. It's kind of dark. However, it is much easier to see. You can pick up detail in scenes and see things that I've never noticed in the movie before. The movie was finally watchable. I could finally watch the movie in like a quality that was comparable. That I felt was actually decent and watchable. The old VHS version, which was released by Vestron Video, that version was terrible. It was virtually unwatchable, and that's what I grew up watching. And I still kind of liked the movie then, but I always felt like I needed to see this movie, actually see it, because there's some stuff that takes place at night in the movie that's pretty dark, you know? I kind of going back to Sleepaway Camp. I mean, I'm sure people know Sleepaway Camp, like the horror fans. But if you don't, it's a camp slasher with a great twist ending, which I won't give away here if you've never seen it. But if you have seen it, you'll know. You know what I'm talking about. The Final Terror is it kind of fits into that survivalist wilderness adventure kind of genre. But it's also a slasher as well. You've got like this killer in the woods, but there's not a lot of deaths in the movie. It's really more of a survivalist movie than a slasher film. And I think that's why the movie had a hard time finding its audience initially, because I think it did well when it first came out, but it just came out during the slasher boom. And there's some bonus features. There's a good couple of featurettes, interview with the editor and the person that did the music for the movie, the woman that did the music. Good bonus features on the disc, and they're definitely worth checking out. The transfer, like I said, is as good as it's going to be for this type of movie. Although, don't take that as it's a bad transfer, because it's actually a really good transfer, I think. And so The Final Terror, definitely worth checking out. A great movie, basically, just to see anyway. And you can finally see the movie and enjoy the movie in a watchable way. Another one, actually, you know what's funny is this isn't a Scream Factory, was Shout. But I'll talk about this one next, because this one kind of fits with The Final Terror. A movie called Southern Comfort came out on Blu-ray. It is a 1981 Walter Hill movie. Wait, 81? Hold on a second here. Southern Comfort is, I want to say it's 81. I have it right here. It is it 81? Sorry about this. 1981. Yeah, 1981 Walter Hill movie. Great little movie. The guy who made The Warriors, Walter Hill. And there's kind of a similar kind of plot structure to this in The Warriors. The movie is about a group of National Guardsmen who end up going on a trip into like the Louisiana bayou, like the swamps, for just like a weekend excursion, basically. And they end up pissing off some locals, and they get lost out in the woods, and it's a survivalist adventure type movie as well. And it's a great film. If you've never seen Southern Comfort and you're fans of movies like Deliverance or Survival Quest, the Don Coscarelli film, which is kind of an obscure reference, but if you're into those type of movies, Southern Comfort is a great friggin' film, and I definitely suggest, if you like Walter Hill movies, check it out. There are some bonus features on it. The transfer is pretty damn good. Blu-ray.com didn't give it a very good review, but I personally thought the transfer held up quite nicely. I mean, for the type of movie that it is. So, definitely... Oops, sorry, that was my computer. Definitely worth checking out. Like I said, there's some bonus features on there. They're okay. I mean, they could have been a little bit more interesting. I got a little bored with the half-hour featurette that was on there. But, they talk about, the origins of the movie and the making of the movie. And they talk to Walter Hill, and Keith Carradine is in the movie, and he's interviewed. He's kind of a bland interview, but I mean, also he's from Nashville, one of my favorite movies of all time. But I don't know. It's a great movie. It's definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of that Deliverance type genre, because that's pretty much what it is. From 1981, Southern Comfort. It's another Scream Factory release that came out, which this one I was a little skeptical on, because I had seen the movie when it first came out, Lake Placid. It came out in the 90s. And I had seen the movie. Let's see, what year is Lake Placid? I want to say Lake Placid is 1999. It's directed by Steve Miner, the guy who directed Friday the 13th Part 2. It's got Bridget Fonda in it, Bill Pullman, and a guy named Oliver Platt. Yeah, an actor named Oliver Platt. Betty White's in it. She provides some good comic relief in the film. It's a good little film, actually. It's a nature gone wild movie, basically, about this giant alligator who kind of stakes a claim in Maine, in the waters of Maine. It's kind of Jaws-y in that way, and you get a bunch of you get a scientist, a police officer, and like Bill Pullman plays like what do they call him, like a wildlife guy, like a wildlife preserve type guy who that comes in, the fish and game people comes in to find out what's going on with this giant alligator. And I thought the movie was really good, and I really enjoyed watching the movie again, oddly enough, because I had seen the movie when it came out in the movie theater, and I remembered it being a decent movie, but I was kind of surprised that Scream Factory put this movie out on Blu-ray. and it turned out to be like a good film, and it's definitely rewatchable. The transfer is good. It's got an interesting like featurette on there and some other bonus features. It's because Stan Winston did the creature effects. He did the alligator in the movie, and there's got some cool. It's kind of a mix of early CGI and creature effects, and the CGI is not that bad. It's a little dated in some spots, but it really doesn't kill the movie in any way. It's kind of a fun. It's almost like a horror comedy. But it's a very entertaining movie if you've never seen it. It might be the type of movie where I would almost suggest that people, if you can rent it or you can see it on like Netflix or something like that, see it before you purchase it, because it's not a movie I'd suggest to run out and buy. But it's a decent little movie. So, yeah. Lake Placid. Good Blu-ray from Scream Factory. Pick that up if you're interested. So we got Sleepaway Camp, Final Terror, Lake Placid, Southern Comfort. I want to talk about these double feature sets that I picked up a few of them. They're from Mill Creek, okay? A while back I had picked up a Happy Birthday to Me and When a Stranger Calls, double feature from Mill Creek. Not expecting too much because I kind of saw them in the same light as, say, like Echo Bridge, the company. And these are on Blu-ray. And the transfers are great. They're right up there with like what Twilight Time does. Literally, they're just getting HD masters from Sony, and they had Touchtone movies as well. Sony, and they're just plopping them down on a disc. But they're not squeezing like, say, 2 movies on like a single layer disc. They're putting them on like 50 gig discs, and they're giving the movies enough room to breathe. So the transfers are actually quite good. They're just as good as any HD. It would be the HD TV transfer you would see of this movie if you were to see it. In high definition on television or whatnot. But one of my favorite ones that I got, and this is actually, it was at Walmart. They had a bin of these. They're like $2.96 in each, and they were double features, and they had so many of them. Ones that I had wanting to get, like I got Anatomy 1 and 2, and the transfers on those are decent. I like the movie. It's kind of a slasher film from Germany, I guess you could call it. It takes place all in like an anatomy class, like there's these people these kids trying to be doctors, these like college age students trying to be doctors, and it has some chick, I forget her name, but she's in Born Identity and I want to say Run Lola Run as well, but those movies are cool. They're typical kind of slasher films from the era. They kind of feel like Germany's answer to like I Know What You Did Last Summer or Scream or whatnot, because they came out around the same time. So, but it's double feature of those. They have the original German audio tracks with them, and they also have the English tracks as well. And I found actually to be best to watch it with the German track and the subtitled, even though I don't mind dub tracks for the most part. The dub tracks were pretty awful for those. I don't think Part 2 has a dub track. Part 2 only has the German with the subtitles, but the first one had the English track and the German track. The German track's not lossless, like if you're familiar with that. It's not like DTS HD audio or anything, but it is it's decent sound quality, and I found the English track, lossless or not, to be kind of awful to listen to. So that's a good one. Anatomy 1 and 2, got that for $3. One of my favorite ones that I got actually was Mr. Sardonicus and The Brotherhood of Satan. Now, Mr. Sardonicus is a 1961 William Castle film, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a black and white movie, kind of lurid. It's a very drive-in-y affair. It's actually it's a really good transfer of the movie too. It's basically about this guy. It's an interesting plot. It's about this doctor who gets sucked into like his ex-wife or girlfriend or whatever. I can't remember if she was a wife or a girlfriend. Calls him and has him come because she says she needs help. So he shows up, and there's this guy calling himself Mr. Sardonicus, and as it turns out, he went. Okay, his father bought a lottery ticket for him and his wife, for the Mr. Sardonicus character and his wife, and he went to a and he ended up winning the lottery, but his father passed away right before, and he kept the ticket in his jacket pocket, and they buried the ticket with him. So as it turns out, the wife is kind of mean, and she's kind of like money grub, and she makes her husband, go and dig up his dead father to get this lottery ticket so that they can win. And in the process of that, he gets so scared that his face distorts, and it stays that way. And that's why he when he wears this mask all the time. So they call this doctor guy, who's a friend of his this Mr. Sardonicus's current wife, to come down and hopefully fix his face. But Mr. Sardonicus is kind of evil, and he's doing bad things, and it's a very lurid drive-in, horror movie from back in the day with, typical William Castle stuff going on. Like, he introduces the movie, and at one point towards the end, he comes on and he gives the audience a chance to choose the ending of the movie, which it's totally staged, and obviously there's only one ending to the movie, but he makes it seem like the audience chose the ending of the movie. Those typical William Castle like theatrics, which are kind of great and missing from that era. But Mr. Sardonicus is a great movie, good transfer, no bonus features or anything, but like, it's a good transfer of the movie if you like the movie. The Brotherhood of Satan is a little slow. It's kind of a 70s drive-in movie about a satanic cult in this small town, and the kids are all disappearing, and without giving away the whole plot, which there isn't that much of, it's a bit slow of a movie, but it has some great imagery and some good creepy 70s tone. And that one was made in, I want to say 1971 and they're both just great drive-in movies. It's a good double feature with two great drive-ins. So if you can find that one, Mr. Sardonicus and The Brotherhood of Satan from Mill Creek, it's worth it if you're into those types of movies. I also picked up another one that I picked up was I picked up a whole bunch of them, but another one was Physical Evidence and a movie called The Anderson Tapes. Physical Evidence is a 1989 Burt Reynolds movie. It's kind of like a murder mystery. It's about a cop who gets framed for murder, and and there's a court case going on involved in it. It's a decent movie. It's not the better of the two. The Anderson Tapes, however, is a 1971, I think. The Anderson Tapes is 1971 with Sean Connery, and it's a Sidney Lumet movie. And Diane Cannon is in it. I'm not familiar with her, but she's a popular actress from the time period. And it is a 1971, a Sidney Lumet movie. Now, it's not quite up there with, say, like Serpico or Dog Day Afternoon. Those are like Sidney Lumet's big ones that people always remember Sidney Lumet for. But it's a very, very entertaining film, and I honestly feel like it's definitely worth checking out if you're into like heist films, because it's after Duke Anderson is released from prison 10 years for taking the rap for a mafia family. He cashes in. Basically, he gets the mob to bankroll this caper. He wants to rob this apartment complex, and the whole thing is like a typical Sidney Lumet movie. How things go wrong, and certain things go right, certain things go wrong, but how the whole thing goes down. And it's got a really early appearance. I think it's the first actually appearance of Christopher Walken, and it's a good role in the movie. And he's young, but it's a really good role in the movie, and it's a well worth it Sidney Lumet film, The Anderson Tapes. That makes the double feature for that one, and the transfer is pretty damn good too. Like, for what it is, it's it's one of his lesser known titles, so there's not much fanfare to it the way it came out, but it's a decent double feature, Physical Evidence and The Anderson Tapes. So for those double features, I got Anatomy 1 and 2, I got Mr. Sardonicus and The Brotherhood of Satan, and I got Physical Evidence and The Anderson Tapes. And those are the main ones that I got, and I really enjoyed all three of them, and I completely enjoyed them all, and I had a great time watching them. I can't remember if I got any other ones. They escapes me right now, but that's a good three right there to talk about. So definitely. And I guess and I also got, if you're a music fan, I picked up this, and this is a great release actually. It's Billy Joel. It's called A Matter of Trust: The Bridge to Russia. It was released as Live from Leningrad in the 80s, in 1987. I think, because it was a concert. It was Billy Joel was allowed to come to Russia. He was one of the first. I think he was the first American artist ever to be able to perform in Russia. It was right before the wall was, the whole wall thing came down and all that stuff. And he performed a great show. The Live from Leningrad release of it, though, actually cuts a lot of the great songs out of the set. I mean, the set is awesome. I mean, it's newly remastered and extended. It comes with 2 CDs. You can get a concert only version of the Blu-ray, but I got the 2 CD version and the Blu-ray. And the Blu-ray has a documentary, which is awesome, which is a great documentary about him going to Russia and all that, with new interviews now of him and Christy Brinkley, and they talk about their kid and going to Russia and performing the concert and the shows that he did out there. And the concert is great. I mean, sound quality is great. It looks awesome. It was shot on film, so it's gorgeous. It was filmed by Wayne Isham, the guy who did the Metallica movies, The Day in the Life of, and which would be great to get that on Blu-ray as well. But no, this is a really good release, and it's definitely worth picking up if you're, into, say, Billy Joel and you're into concert Blu-rays and stuff like that. I also picked up Guns N' Roses in 3D, Appetite for Democracy. And I have to say, there's a lot of bullshit about... I love Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses is one of my favorite all-time bands. I grew up listening to them. It's the reason why I play guitar, like Slash. So I will never knock Slash. But Axl's new band is pretty damn good. It's like filled with virtuosos. It's filled with these musical prodigies that are amazing performers. So it is pretty cool to see all those songs from the Use Your Illusions era and the Appetite performed by this band. And Axl puts on a pretty good show. The 3D for the show is useless, and I didn't even really watch it in 3D. I just watched it in 2D. Even though the disc kind of defaults to 3D, you're able to watch it in 2D as well. And it's you kind of, if you don't have a 3D Blu-ray player, you're not going to be able to play this Blu-ray. So just heads up about that, because all there is they have a DVD version of it that came out. That's a 2D version, but it's a really good show, great set. It's 2 hours and 43 minutes long. It's impressive band too. So it's definitely worth it if you're a fan of Guns N' Roses, because aside from the Use Your Illusions Volume 1 and 2, VHS, the DVDs that came out, VHS originally, they came out on DVD back in the 90s. This is the only other Guns N' Roses concert film that's ever been released. So it's definitely worth picking up if you're a fan of Guns N' Roses. So I highly suggest it. So we've got all good releases: Sleepaway Camp, Final Terror, Lake Placid, All Scream Factory. I recommend all of them. Lake Placid, I'd say maybe a rental first, but the other ones are great. Southern Comfort, great Deliverance style movie. I highly recommend it if you're into those type of movies. The double features I got: Anatomy 1 and 2, Physical Evidence, The Anderson Tapes, and Mr. Sardonicus and The Brotherhood of Satan. So that's a pretty good little list of reviews for this episode so far. So, okay, now on to our topic for this month. Our topic is going to be the films of Clint Eastwood. I am a huge Clint Eastwood fan. I've always been a fan of his acting roles, his direction in movies as a director. He's an amazing filmmaker, actor, director, producer. He's a great musician on top of it. He's an all-purpose guy. He's one of the old guard, so to speak. When you think of the actors from the 70s and the 80s and the directors, you think of Spielberg, Lucas. Clint Eastwood is right up there with all of them, because he's made just as many great movies. And I think sometimes he doesn't get the attention that he deserves, because he's an amazing filmmaker. Pretty much, there's so much stuff that you can watch with him, and it's so good. I'm looking at his filmography here, because there's so much stuff for Clint Eastwood that I almost need a guide to help me through all this. His early years are really, he played a lot of TV stuff. He was on Maverick. He was on Rawhide. He was in a lot of TV type stuff. And he played some random bit parts in drive-in monster movies from the 50s and stuff like that. Some of the low budget stuff, some of he was always third guy up from the left. He did a bunch of stuff early. It's funny, his career actually starts as an actor. He's uncredited in a movie called Revenge of the Creature in 1955. So, as an actor, he started out, and it's pretty impressive he's been in these movies for this long. But then, okay, we'll start out with the movies that he's most known for. The stuff that, he did TV series and stuff, but his first real, the movies that people recognize him from are Basically, it started off for him with what's called the Dollars trilogy, Sergio Leone's trilogy of spaghetti westerns. You've got A Fistful of Dollars in 1964, For a Few Dollars More in 1965, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in 1966. What's hilarious about these movies is they're called it's called the Man with No Name trilogy. But I'm looking at it right here. In A Fistful of Dollars, his name is Joe. And For a Few Dollars More, his name is Monco. In The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, they call him Blondie. Like, he has a name in all these movies, but the trilogy is called the Man with No Name trilogy. But these are great movies. Like, if you're a fan of Westerns in general, it's a good way to get into the spaghetti Westerns, What do you got here? You've got, with A Fistful of Dollars, it's, let's see. A wandering gunfighter plays two rival families against each other in a town torn apart by greed, pride, and revenge. That's the actual, and directed by Sergio Leone. It's got Clint Eastwood in it. And these are Italian-made movies, so there are Italian actors in it as well. But they were Italian-American co-productions, sort of. Like, these movies are known more for, in America, they're big in Italy as well because it's Sergio Leone, but they're really known a lot in America as well. So Fistful of Dollars, that's a great one on its own. For a Few Dollars More, it's let's see, two bounty hunters with the same intentions team up to track down a Western outlaw. That's him, and Lee Van Cleef plays his friend, what is it? They're both bounty hunters, and they're both looking for, they're trying to track down this person. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's a great movie. That's where it starts off. And the one that gets the most notice, even though my favorite of the three, the Dollars trilogy, is actually A Fistful of Dollars, which is, what is it? It's a remake of, I want to say it's a remake of a Kurosawa film. It's actually, I can't remember the name of it, which one it is, but it is actually a remake of that movie, A Fistful of Dollars. It's an it's an Italian movie, but it's a a more international take on that story. It's not Yojimbo. It might be Rashomon. I'm not sure which one it is. I can't. I wish I had it in front of me right now, but I don't. Well, I'm sure if you're familiar with it and you want to look it up, you can find that information pretty easily. That's like my favorite one out of the three, actually, is A Fistful of Dollars. For a Few Dollars More is a great movie. It feels a little long to me. I've always been a fan of the three movies. The one that gets the most attention, of course, is 1966, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Description here is a bounty hunting scam joins two men in an uneasy alliance against a third in a race to find a fortune in gold buried in a remote cemetery. And you've got Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, who just passed, actually, playing a character named Tuco. You've got Lee Van Cleef, who's in the movie, and Lee Van Cleef's character in this movie is a character, they call him Angel Eyes. Actually, his name is Sentenza, which is interesting. I never noticed that, but he's referred to as Angel Eyes throughout the most movies. Angel Eyes, Blondie, and Tuco. It's classic. It's a classic movie. It's a little long for some people. Like the cut of the movie it's 161 minutes. And I don't even know if that's the cut that's on the current Blu-ray release. I think it's longer on the current Blu-ray release. I'm not sure. It's a long-winded movie. And speaking of the current Blu-ray release, there's a little bit of controversy surrounding that because it's there was a brand new 4K transfer made for it, and the movie was color timed. It's color timed to look like the old Technicolor prints did on purpose, supposedly. There's a lot of people debating over whether or not that's actually the case. I don't know. I've never seen an old Technicolor print of the movie. The new color timing fits quite well with the other films, the other two films. Like, they all kind of have a similar look to them now, so I personally prefer the new 4K transfer for it. It's a much better transfer. The previous Blu-ray was terrible. It sucked. It suffered from a lot of digital tinkering, and I say the version that's out there now is definitely the best version to get your hands on, I think. There is an import version of it from Italy that apparently looks a little bit better, but it's a direct transfer from, it might have been a negative or an interpositive or something like that, and it actually has a lot of the colors are great and it's vibrant looking and it all looks great, but it looks too clean. These movies always had a rougher look to them, so it's actually kind of nice to see the rougher looking transfer for the good, the bad. It's the 4K transfer. We're not talking rough. We're just talking, they color timed it to give it a certain look. And I watched it and I thought the look was great. Sometimes it pushes yellow a little too harsh, but I think overall it looked quite nice. Those are the movies that kind of start Clint Eastwood's career. That's what people most remember him from when they look back. And these were Italian-American co-productions. So, actually, they were Italian films, really. They might have been, I think they were Italian-American co-productions. But, I mean, they did just as well in America, but it's really funny that an American actor went and starred in these Italian movies. So, I mean, then you move forward in his career. I mean, that's a great movies. If you're into Clint Eastwood, that's a good start if you're a fan of the Westerns. But you don't have to be a fan of Westerns to like Clint Eastwood. As I get further, he's done so many different genre movies. So, past that, the next movie that comes up, actually, there's a movie called The Witches from 1967, but I'm unfamiliar with that. A movie called Hang 'Em High. Not one of my favorite Clint Eastwood movies. It's just a kind of a run-of-the-mill Western, 1968. Decent movie. Not one of my favorite ones, personally. Then you got Coogan's Bluff in 1968. It's a cop movie, so to speak. You know what I mean? Then Where Eagles Dare, which is not really. See, there's a handful of movies here. He has so many movies in his career. I'm just gonna go as an actor. I'm just gonna read this off, just for the films that I remember: Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, The Witches, Hang 'Em High, Coogan's Bluff, Where Eagles Dare, Paint Your Wagon, Two Meals for Sister Sarah, Kelly's Heroes, The Beguiled, Play Misty for Me, Dirty Harry, Joe Kidd, High Plains Drifter, Breezy, Magnum Force, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, The Eager Sanction, The Outlaw Josie Wales, The Enforcer, The Gauntlet. I'm only up to 77. Every Which Way But Loose, Escape from Alcatraz, Bronco Billy, Any Which Way You Can, Firefox, Honky Tonk Man, Sudden Impact, Tightrope, City Heat, Pale Rider, Heartbreak Ridge, The Deadpool, Pink Cadillac, I'm Still in the 80s, White Hunter, Black Heart, The Rookie, Unforgiven, In the Line of Fire, A Perfect World, The Bridges of Madison County, Absolute Power, True Crime, Space Cowboys, Bloodwork, $1 Million Baby, Gran Torino, and Trouble with the Curve, which is his last listed acting credit. Now, that's not even the movies that he directed, because he directed a bunch of movies as well. That's just his acting credits. We'll get into some of the director stuff in a little bit here. But, I mean, there's so many movies. I'm going to kind of cherry pick from his catalog here to talk about the movies that I'm more familiar with. Hang 'Em High, not a huge fan of. It's an okay movie. It's a pretty run-of-the-mill Western. Coogan's Bluff is a cop movie. Not a bad movie, actually. Coogan's Bluff, it's directed by Don Siegel, which I would say, let me double check here. I think Coogan's Bluff is the very first movie that Clint Eastwood made with Don Siegel. Yes, it is. Hang 'Em High was directed by Ted Post. So Coogan's Bluff is his first movie with Don Siegel. The description of the movie goes, an Arizona deputy goes to New York City to escort a fugitive back into custody. Coogan's Bluff isn't bad. It's not a Dirty Harry movie. It's kind of like pre-Dirty Harry. It kind of feels like a Dirty Harry movie to a certain degree. It's not one of my favorite ones. So you know what? I'm going to kind of jump over that one a little bit. It's not that you shouldn't check it out. It's just that there are better ones, you know. The next one in his film career that I'm familiar with, more so I can talk about it a little bit, is Two Mules for Sister Sarah from 1970. You've got Clint Eastwood and Shirley MacLaine. I mean, it's a fun movie. It's kind of a comedy western in a weird way. Well, it's more like a comedy war movie, actually. It's considered a western. It's set in Mexico. A nun called Sarah is rescued from three cowboys by Hogan, who is on his way to do some reconnaissance for a future. Hogan is Clint Eastwood's character, for a future mission to capture a French fort. So he's trying to capture this French fort. The French are chasing Sarah, but not for the reason she tells Hogan. So he decides to help her in return for information about the fort's defenses. Basically, he takes her along because she offers to tell him things about how he can get into this French fort that he's trying to break into. They inevitably become friends, and it's essentially a road movie. The two of them, it's their adventures as they go from place to place. And there's a good twist to the movie about the Sister Sarah, and Shirley MacLaine is great as Sister Sarah. So it's a comedy western, definitely, and it's a fun movie to watch. And it's also directed by Don Siegel. He did a lot with Don Siegel in the early years. Don Siegel really kind of gave him his start in the United States as an actor in films. But let's move forward a little bit here. And so, yes, there's movie Kelly's Heroes. I love The Beguiled. 1971, a movie called The Beguiled. While imprisoned in a Confederate girls' boarding school, a Union soldier cons his way into each of the lonely woman's hearts. This is also directed by Don Siegel. But this has more of a... it's a thriller. And he ends up in this like old kind of gothic mansion with these women. And each one of them tries to bed him, and he ends up with each woman like individually kind of in their own way. But it's funny that this is a drama romance war. This is a thriller. And you end up with him in this house, this old creepy house. And there's some stuff going on with the women in the house, and and there's jealousies arise between the different girls because this one wants to be with him and that one wants to be with him. It's not a comedy, and it's played out like very much like a thriller, and it's a great movie. It's a really good 70s film. I want to say it takes place in Louisiana, and he plays a Civil War, like a Yankee soldier injured from the Civil War, and he ends up at this house because he's injured, and they're taking care of him. But it's a great movie. I mean, this is one worth checking out, The Beguiled. I mean, we're early in his career. I'm try to move forward because there's so much to talk about with Clint Eastwood. But Play Misty for me. For me, that's one of the. This is a great movie, and this is listed as this is the first film that Clint Eastwood directed. At least what's listed in his actor filmography as a director. It's known as his first directed film. This is an awesome movie. A brief fling. This is 1971. Play Misty for me. A brief fling between a male disc jockey and an obsessed female fan takes a frightening and perhaps even deadly turn when another woman enters the picture. It's Fatal Attraction before Fatal Attraction existed. Basically, is what this movie is, and it has that awesome 70s thriller, psychological thriller style to it. This is just a great picture. He plays a disc jockey, and and the title refers to Play Misty for me. Is she calls in the disc jockey because she's an obsessed fan of the disc jockey, and she keeps calling, asking him to play the song, Play Misty for me. And he ends up hooking up with this woman, and it's just a Fatal Attraction type movie. It's well worth seeing. As of right now, it's only available on DVD, although there is a European box set that's coming out that has a bunch of Clint Eastwood movies, and this is listed as a Blu-ray release. So I think we're going to see an American Blu-ray release, at least of this box set. Like, it'd be a Universal set with a handful of movies. It's got The Beguiled. It's got Play Misty for me. A few other ones like High Plains Drifter and Two Mules for Sarah. Some of the ones that have already come out. High Plains Drifter and Two Mules for Sister Sarah have come out on Blu-ray already. But so Play Misty for me, awesome movie. Check it out. Okay. Now we get into the first of what my favorite Clint Eastwood movies, bar none, were the Dirty Harry movies that he made as Dirty Harry Callahan, and directed by Don Siegel. They're each directed by different people. Actually, Clint Eastwood directed one himself, Sudden Impact. But the first movie, man, it's when a madman, in 1971, Dirty Harry, when a madman calling himself the Scorpio Killer menaces the city, tough as nails San Francisco police inspector Harry Callahan is assigned to track down and ferret out the crazed psychopath. This is just a great movie. It's kind of got a thriller aspect. It's a down and dirty cop thriller, like from the 70s. Awesome music by Lalo Schifrin. The soundtrack is great. It's one of the cool 70s soundtracks for this type of movie. I love the movie. It's supposedly based on a real like murder mystery. Actually, I think they use a Zodiac. They use the Zodiac killer as like the guide for what this was, but I think it veers off that as well. And after he did Dirty Harry, he did a couple westerns and a few random things. But we're gonna continue with the. I'll go back to High Plains Drifter because I love High Plains Drifter, which is 1973. But I'll talk about the Dirty Harry movies now because I love the Dirty Harry movies. The next one in line, and the funny thing is like nowadays it'd be like Dirty Harry Part 1, Dirty Harry Part 2. They had different titles back then, so you almost had to know what they were called to know that it was a Dirty Harry movie, so to speak. The next movie in 1973 was Magnum Force, and it's Dirty Harry on the trail of vigilante cops who are not above going beyond the law to kill the city's undesirables. It's about a group of cops on motorcycles that try to, and it's directed by a guy named Ted Post. Ted Post, actually, what would you know Ted Post from? He's done, he did Beneath the Planet of the Apes. He worked with Clint Eastwood on like, well, no, not really Clint Eastwood, but he did Gunsmoke, the TV show too. That comes up here. But yeah, an old school director, Ted Post, did this. Actually, he directed Hang 'em High with Clint Eastwood as well. Not one of my favorite ones, but I love Magnum Force. Magnum Force is freaking awesome, and it still has that gritty, like 70s like cop drama thing going on with it. And it's almost like Dirty Harry is like, he's kind of like a vigilante cop on his own, but you would think that he would go along with these vigilante cops, but he doesn't. That's the whole plot of the movie and everything, and it's really freaking cool. It's a great movie. Magnum Force, directed by Ted Post, 1973. Definitely worth checking out for Clint Eastwood. Then we want to go to the next. Actually, he did Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, which I really like as well, which was after. But that's directed by Michael Cimino, and that's a great movie with Jeff Bridges is in it, and George Kennedy is in it. With the help of an irreverent young sidekick, a bank robber gets his old gang back together to organize a daring new heist. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. It's from 1974, but I used to love Thunderbolt and Lightfoot growing up, and it's a fun movie for its time. I don't remember too much about it, so I'm not going to talk too much about that one. But let's get back to the Dirty Harry movies. So then, there's a bunch of other stuff, but I'm doing Dirty Harry right now, so we'll jump back on the other stuff. The third Dirty Harry movie is called The Enforcer, okay? And it's directed by a guy named James Fargo. And James Fargo, what did James Fargo make? James Fargo directed, did he? He's known for Every Which Way But Loose. He didn't direct Every Which Way But Loose, but had something to do with it, obviously. He was attached to the film, okay. Let's see, is there anything we would know him from? No, he directed Every Which Way But Loose, apparently. So James Fargo directed Every Which Way But Loose as well. But The Enforcer. Dirty Harry must foil a terrorist organization made up of disgruntled Vietnam veterans. They're kind of like a Charles Manson type cult. But this time he's teamed with a rookie female partner that he's not too excited to be with. The running gag in all these Dirty Harry movies is he always gets a new partner and something happens to the partner at some point in the movie. But Tyne Daly actually played his partner in this movie. And she's most known for being on the TV show Kate and Alley. No, known for Cagney and Lacey. That's the show, not Kate and Alley. A lot of people know her from that show. I never really paid attention to that show growing up, but that's what she's most known for. And she plays his partner in this movie. And it's a really cool dynamic to have Clint Eastwood with a female partner. I like this movie. What's interesting about this movie, though, is the tone starts to change because this is 1976. The tone's changing now. And you've got this almost like a Charlie's Angels TV movie type feel going on with this. So yeah, it's an interesting style change, but it feels like a Dirty Harry. They all feel like a Dirty Harry movie, and they all have like similar musical themes in them as well. But yeah, Enforcer's a great movie. That's the third Dirty Harry movie. Then we get to the fourth Dirty Harry movie, because I'm just doing the Dirty Harrys right now. I'm going to go back. The fourth Dirty Harry movie actually doesn't come up until 1983. So there's a long break there, 76 to 83, in which there was no Dirty Harry movies. And like he came back and did. This is my favorite Dirty Harry movie, 1983. And it's actually directed by Clint Eastwood. So if it's directed by Clint Eastwood, you're going to get a darker film because he has a dark sensibility with the type of movies that he directs. And the description here is a rape victim is exacting revenge on her aggressors in a small town outside San Francisco. Dirty Harry, on suspension for angering his superiors, again, is assigned to the case. I love this movie. It's a rape revenge drama. I think it has a lot in common with movies like Miss 45, which is hilarious to me because it doesn't get listed in that same category. But I mean, it's like an I Spit in Your Grave or a Miss 45. Like I Spit in Your Grave's going a little far, but I love Sudden Impact. Sudden Impact is an awesome movie, and it's totally worth checking out if you're a fan of Clint Eastwood. It's kind of the first Dirty Harry movie I was ever like that I ever saw. And this movie in particular, let's see, just want to make sure. One of the big things in this movie is his wife Sandra Locke was in it, and she did a lot of others. She plays the rape victim and the main character, and I'm pretty sure it was his wife. I can't remember whether it was his wife or not. I think he was married to her for a short period of time, or they were at least boyfriend, girlfriend. But this is the movie this is where his big, where the, go ahead, make my day. That's this movie. That's where it came from. You'd think it would come from Dirty Harry, but no, it's from Sudden Impact. Go ahead, punk, make my day. Right? So what is the exact quote? Does it actually say it? Where does it say? It's got to be listed here. Hilarious. I'm surprised that they actually don't. It's in here somewhere. I mean, it's one of the most known things. So, yeah. Smith, Wesson, and me. And he says, but I'm pretty sure this is the go ahead. Yeah, there it is right there. Callahan dares a crook to shoot his hostage. Go ahead, make my day. This is where that comes from. Sudden Impact. So I'm sure if you're familiar with Dirty Harry in any way, shape, or form, you're familiar with that and you've heard that before. So yeah, Dirty Harry. Sudden Impact, one of my favorites. Dark, grim, just a great friggin' movie. I first saw this when I was a little kid because my dad recorded it off cable, and I shouldn't have been watching it, but I loved it. It's got a great style. It's got a really good soundtrack to it too. I like the end credit music of this actually has like a vocal version. Roberta Flack, I think, was the one who sang it, of the theme song. I forget the title. The Edge of Nowhere. I can't remember exactly what the title is off the top of my head, but yeah. Fourth Dirty Harry movie, Sudden Impact. Definitely a must-see if you're a fan of Clint Eastwood. Okay, now we do to the fifth Dirty Harry movie. The fifth Dirty Harry movie didn't come out until 1988. So we went from 83 to 88. There were big breaks here. I think at this point he was kind of done with the Dirty Harry thing, and he was just coming back to do it every now and then because he's like, let's make another Dirty Harry movie. This movie, the plot of this one is 1988, is Dirty Harry Callahan must stop a sick secret contest to murder local celebrities, which includes himself as a target. It's directed by a guy named Buddy Van Horn, who also made other movies with Clint Eastwood. He's, as a director, he's most known for, he made 3 movies with Clint Eastwood as a director. Any Which Way You Can, which was the sequel to Every Which Way But Loose. We'll talk about that in a bit. The Deadpool and Pink Cadillac, which I did like, which is not one of my favorite ones looking back on, but I did enjoy Pink Cadillac. But yeah, the Deadpool, it's weird. It's kind of like, it was 1988. This is the tail end of the slasher movie. There's a lot of slasher movies and horror movies out at the time. And the movie actually feels, it has kind of like a horror plot to it. It feels like how can I put this? A comment on the horror movies of the time, because there's a filmmaker in the film who played by Liam Neeson, who is actually like, he has this contest called the Deadpool contest called the Deadpool, and what they do is it's played by like rich Hollywood types, and they write down the people they think who's going to die next, and whoever wins, they're betting on people's death basically. And he's making this film with an actor who's actually a musician who plays this musician who's become an actor, with Jim Carrey in like his first role, singing "Welcome to the Jungle" by Guns N' Roses. There's Guns N' Roses music in the movie, which is Guns N' Roses is in the movie in a short cameo actually. The original members of Guns N' Roses are all seen in one shot of the movie, And like I said, Welcome to the Jungle is used prominently as a plot point in the film. Probably not the best Dirty Harry movie of them all, but if you've watched them all, it's worth checking out. Because I'm a big fan of the Dirty Harry movies. They, you can get the Dirty Harry movies on Blu-ray. They came out in a great box set, really good transfers, some great bonus features. Definitely worth checking out. I love the Dirty Harry movies. I'm just a huge fan of Clint Eastwood, but Dirty Harry is like my thing. We'll jump back a little bit though, because we skipped some stuff in between here. He's done a lot of westerns and different types of movies. The Outlaw Josie Wales. It's directed by Clint Eastwood as well. It's actually 1976. This is one of my favorite westerns of all time. A Missouri farmer joins a Confederate guerrilla unit and winds up on the run from the Union soldiers who murdered his family. This movie's awesome. I love this movie, The Outlaw Josie Wales. It's a great movie. Sandra Locke's in it as well. He had an actor, a guy named Jeffrey Lewis, who's in The Devil's Rejects, who he used a lot in a lot of these old movies. He's in there. I really liked the style of this movie, and I find it funny. I always think The Devil's Rejects was one of my favorite movies, Rob Zombie. I find it very interesting that he actually used Jeffrey Lewis is in that movie and Banjo and Sullivan, and there's a style to The Devil's Rejects that at times, even though it's taken from like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Last House on the Left, there's an element I always felt of this movie. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but The Outlaw Josie Wales, there's an element of this movie, like the tail end of it, that feels like, you know, Rob Zombie just loved these type of westerns from the 70s. And this is kind of a modern western. This has like this isn't like, you know, Clint Eastwood has his 60s westerns that feel like westerns, and as the spaghetti westerns are a little more modern. But then you've got like High Plains Drifter, and you've got The Outlaw Josie Wales, and even going into the 80s, Pale Rider. These are different types of westerns. They feel more modern, and they, you know, they focus on more serious subjects, and they're darker in tone. And The Outlaw Josie Wales is just a great western. Even if you're not into westerns, I feel this is a great way to get you into westerns, because it's just an awesome movie on its own. So yeah, and it came out on Blu-ray. You can get it came out on good transfer, good Blu-ray. So definitely worth checking out The Outlaw Josie Wales. I mentioned High Plains Drifter, which I love, which is a great movie. Another one directed by Clint Eastwood. He directed a lot of the movies he starred in early on. But this one, 1973, a gunfighting stranger comes to the small settlement of Lago and is hired to bring the townsfolk together in an attempt to hold off 3 outlaws who are on their way. It's a dark movie. It almost feels like a horror movie. He comes in, and there's this element where he might be a ghost, he might not be a ghost. It's kind of like this unclear element in the movie, but it has this dark feel. He basically like forces the town people to stick up for themselves. I mean, it has one of the best endings where they literally paint the town red and they write "Welcome to Hell" for like the people to come back. Like but there's a subplot that ties him into the bad guys who are showing up to hurt the people in the town as well. It's definitely a western, but like I said, it's more of a modern western. Like it's not your old school stodgy western. This is a revenge movie, and it's just a lot of these westerns that he made were revenge movies, and I like revenge movies. I'm a big fan of the genre of revenge movies. So and what other movies from that time period that we kind of skipped there? He also made a movie called The Gauntlet in 1977. I mean, it just goes on and on. This one's directed by Clint Eastwood as well, and it has his wife Sandra Locke in it. A hard but mediocre cop is assigned to escort a prostitute into custody from Las Vegas to Phoenix so that she can testify in a mob trial, but a lot of people are literally betting that they won't make it into town alive. I mean, this is a fun movie to watch. It's like he has to bring this prostitute. It's a road movie, really, and it's all the stuff that happens to them along the way. And you can get this on Blu-ray in a pretty decent transfer as well. And these are the kind of like the off movies that Clint Eastwood did. That like The Gauntlet. I mean, I love The Gauntlet. It's one of these like random Clint Eastwood. I really like the random ones, the ones that aren't. I mean, I love the Dirty Harry movies, but almost the ones that aren't attached to his like series of movies that he did, like, you know, the spaghetti westerns or the Dirty Harry movies. And like this is one of those like random titles, but it's a good little like crime drama, like an action movie. So 77, The Gauntlet, that's one to check out. Not associated with Dirty Harry or anything. This is just a separate movie on its own. But let's talk about some comedies, because in the late 70s, early 80s, he made some comedies, like good comedies. Now, the first one's directed by James Fargo, the guy earlier that I forget which one James Fargo we say. He made one of the Dirty Harry movies, The Enforcer. That's the one. And Every Which Way But Loose, 1978. This is one of those movies, if you grew up in the 80s, you couldn't help but seeing on television. Like, I remember seeing this movie on television. Basically, the story about it is Philo Beddoe is the character that Clint Eastwood plays. He's a truck driver and like a fist fighter. He fights in these like underground these fights where they go to like these factories and they have fights outside and people bet on who wins. It's kind of like these underground fights. With two friends, Orville, who promotes the prize fights for him, and Clyde, the orangutan he won on a bet. Freaking Clyde, man. Clyde is awesome. And like, if you remember these movies from the 80s, you remember the orangutan Clyde. Like, you know, Pagan Fingers, and Ruth Gordon's in it, and she plays his mother. And once again, Jeffrey Lewis is in it. And Sandra Locke is in it. She plays a country and western singer that he gets involved in, and there's kind of a plot involved in that. They made two of these movies. Every Which Way But Loose is the better of the two. But the second one that he made in 1980, which is Any Which Way You Can, and it was a sequel to Every Which Way But Loose. And it's basically more of the same thing, but he gets involved with this bike gang that, that he accidentally like pisses off, and they follow him through the whole movie. It's a little bit more slapsticky, Any Which Way You Can, and I enjoy it. 1980. It's directed by a guy named Buddy Van Horn, who did a ton of stuff with Clint Eastwood as a director. Buddy Van Horn did so much shit. Not as much as I thought. Any Which Way You Can, The Deadpool, and Pink Cadillac. Oh, I think I already said this actually. Yes, I already did. I'm repeating myself now. Any Which Way You Can, Every Which Way But Loose, Any Which Way You Can. You can get them in a double feature Blu-ray, which is pretty good transfer. And I just love these movies. Clyde the Orangutan. It's just a silly concept, but they're great 80s comedies. Another 80s comedy, oddly enough, that he made was a movie called Bronco Billy in 1980. An idealistic modern-day cowboy struggles to keep his Wild West show afloat in the face of hard luck and waning interest. This was directed by Clint Eastwood. I love this movie, and I think this is one that should come out on Blu-ray as well, because it hasn't yet. And it's a fun comedy, like from 1980. It's not to be taken too seriously. He plays like, a struggling old school cowboy. He travels around to like fairs and he does like cowboy shows for kids and stuff like that. And Jeffrey Lewis and Sandra Locke are in it again. It's like there's this period where like he directed a bunch of movies and he had the same actors in these movies as the early 80s. And they're all great movies. Bronco Billy is a great movie. Another great movie from that time period is Honky Tonk Man from 1982. This is actually one of my favorites, and I can't wait for this one to come out on Blu-ray. It hasn't been announced yet. It's directed by Clint Eastwood, and his son Kyle Eastwood actually plays his son in the movie. And the description for it is, it says, as the film opens on an Oklahoma farm during the Depression, two simultaneous visitors literally hit the Wagoneer home. A ruinous dust storm and convertible crazy. This description's a little weird. Basically, he travels across the country with it's his son or his nephew. I can't remember exactly what it is, but he travels across the country and he's sick. Clint Eastwood's character is very sick, but he plays in like these honky tonk bars, and it's a country and western movie basically. And he travels with his son, who actually played by his real son Kyle Eastwood in the movie, and it's a road movie with him and the boy, and it's a kind of a coming of age tale for the boy, and like it's a really good movie, man. It's a really like entertaining movie. It's listed as a comedy, which makes no sense to me because this is totally a drama, has a very serious ending, and like it's just a really good movie from his time period. If you're looking for an obscure Clint Eastwood movie to check out Honky Tonk Man. And this is one that needs to come out on Blu-ray, which I hope does. It's kind of a lost gem in his catalog of films, I think. Well, he had a bunch of other movies in the 80s. Firefox, City Heat. Firefox is okay. I'm not a big fan of Firefox. City Heat, I've never seen. Tightrope is a great movie from 1984. And there's so many awesome movies that Clint Eastwood made. This is directed by a guy named Richard Tuggle, who he's known for Escape from Alcatraz, which I skipped, which is 1979, which is an awesome Clint Eastwood movie. If you basically, it's a dramatization of the one possibly successful escape from the infamous prison island in Alcatraz. It's directed by Donald Siegel again, his friend Don Siegel, in 1979. Escape from Alcatraz. It's based on a true story about a bunch of guys a guy who actually supposedly escaped from Alcatraz. But the real story is they don't know if they actually made it out or not. They might have died in the water on their way out, but it's a great reenactment of that. But going back to Tightrope, I'm a fan of Tightrope. Once again, he plays a detective, always the detective. Wes Block is a detective who's put on the case of a serial killer whose victims are young and pretty women that he rapes and murders. Another kind of rape revenge drama movie. The killings are getting personal when the killer chooses victims who are acquaintances of Block, Clint Eastwood's character. Even his daughters are threatened. And I like this movie because he has these two daughters, and you see him as a father in the movie, and he's a father, but he goes out to these clubs at night, and it's kind of these seedy sex clubs. He's kind of involved in this weird little sex scene, and it's 1984, and it's an interesting, it's not really erotically charged, but it's like a thriller about this underground sex thing, and I'm pretty sure it takes place in Louisiana. Not really sure. I'm trying to see. Is it Louisiana? Yeah. Despite shooting on location in New Orleans, not one person in the movie has a regional Louisiana, New Orleans, or Cajun accent. Okay, well, whatever. It's shot in New Orleans. It's Louisiana. Great movie. Actress Genevieve Bujold, I don't know how to pronounce her name. She's in it. She plays his love interest and kind of this kinky person he gets involved with. And she was also in the movie Coma, which I love, which is an awesome movie from the 80s. But Tightrope, definitely worth seeing. So here we're getting further up in his career now, but of movies that he starred in, he's done great movies. Like Heartbreak Ridge is an okay movie from 1986 where he plays a hard-nosed, hard-living Marine gunnery sergeant, and it's directed by him as well. It's a good movie, actually. A lot of people remember that movie. It's more of a comedy drama type thing, and he trains this ragtag group of people. It's got Mario Van Peebles in it, and every time Mario Van Peebles is in something, it kind of takes me off. I don't know why, but I guess he could be a good actor, but Mario Van Peebles drives me nuts sometimes. But movie I love is from 1985, another directed by Clint Eastwood. He directed so many of these movies that he starred in. 1985, Pale Rider is an awesome movie. It's got Clint Eastwood, Michael Moriarty, Carrie Snodgrass is in it, Chris Penn is in it, Richard Kiel from the James Bond movies, who played in Moonraker, the Jaws. From Jaws, the character of Jaws. That's what he was called. Actually, oddly enough, a take on Jaws being popular at the time. Pale Rider. A mysterious preacher protects a humble prospector village from a greedy mining company trying to encroach their land. He comes into town as this preacher. It's very he rides in on his horse and stuff like that, and he befriends this family, and he basically protects them from this mining company that's trying to take over their town. It's a Western theme, but it's a really good kind of revenge drama. Yet again, they all, the revenge theme is so prevalent in the Western. So it's really that's what these movies end up being all the time, is these revenge movies. But Pale Rider is a great movie from 1985. I can't suggest it anymore. There's somebody screaming at somebody outside of my house. You might actually be able to hear that. I don't know if she's just yelling at somebody. Okay, well, whatever about that. That's where I live, folks. But I'm in my room right now, so hopefully I won't get shot. No, it's not that bad where I live. But yeah, so I'm going to move forward now. There's a lot of stuff. He's made so many movies, but I'm going to go to Clint Eastwood as a director, because as you've been noticing, he's directed a lot of his stuff. I'm just going to go through this, okay? Just so you can just hear this. As a director, he directed Play Misty for Me, High Plains Drifter, Breezy, The Eager Sanction, Outlaw Josie Wales, The Gauntlet, Bronco Billy, Firefox, Honky Tonk Man, Sudden Impact, Pale Rider, Heartbreak Ridge, Bird, a movie that he made. White Hunter, Black Heart, The Rookie, Unforgiven, Perfect World, Bridges of Madison County, Absolute Power, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, True Crime, Space Cowboys, Bloodwork, Mystic River, $1 Million Baby, Flags of Our Fathers, Letters from Iwo Jima, Changeling, Gran Torino, Invictus, Hereafter, J. Edgar, Jersey Boys, which just came out, and there's a movie now, post-production, called American Sniper. He doesn't stop. I mean, he just keeps going. He's made so many great movies. But of the movies he's directed, the ones that I haven't talked about already, people always, he directed Sudden Impact, which I loved. He directed Pale Rider, obviously. Unforgiven is a great movie by him from 1992, because retired Old West gunslinger William Money reluctantly takes one last job with the help of his old partner and a young man. This is he takes the Western notion, and it's like he's an old dude and he has to kind of go back and be the rough Western character again. And the whole idea of the movie is looking at the character from that perspective. So it's a great movie. It's a total drama. It's listed as a Western, but it's really a drama. It's got Gene Hackman in it, Morgan Freeman. This movie won it was up for Oscars, and it definitely won something, I'm pretty sure. It won 4 Oscars. Here we go. This is an awesome movie. Unforgiven. It's a great drama. A lot of the stuff that he directs, he does these dark dramas almost. And Clint Eastwood is 84 years old. Oh my God. He just keeps going, this guy. Unforgiven is one that I loved. There's so many other ones. The Bridges of Madison County was a great movie as well that he directed. That's like a romance story with Meryl Streep, isn't it? It's a really good movie. But the ones that stand out for me, Bloodwork was a good one as well. That kind of seems like a return to... Bloodwork is from 2002. Still recovering from a heart transplant, a retired FBI profiler returns to service when his own blood analysis offers clues to the identity of a serial killer. It's almost like he wanted to make a Dirty Harry movie, another Dirty Harry movie, and that's why it felt like, because it feels like a Dirty Harry movie, but with Dirty Harry as an older dude. It's kind of like the companion piece, really, to The Unforgiven, where The Unforgiven is him as an older guy as a gunslinger. This is him as an older guy as a cop. FBI profiler, same difference. It's got Jeff Daniels in it, Angelica Houston. I really like Bloodwork. Bloodwork holds up pretty well. $1 Million Baby. I mean, come on. If you've ever seen this movie, a determined woman works with a hardened boxing trainer to become a professional. It's basically like a female Rocky, but it turns into a very serious movie at the end from 2004. I mean, this movie won 4 Oscars. I mean... Wait, I think this might be Clint Eastwood. This one won 4 Oscars as well, it says. It's a great movie. If you like movies like The Fighter or The Wrestler, $1 Million Baby is right up there. Sad movie. Really friggin' sad, but a great movie. It's kind of like the really sad version of Rocky. And I've never seen Trouble with the Curve, but I just want to talk about Gran Torino from 2008, because I love Gran Torino. It's directed by Clint Eastwood. It's a return to form for him. It says, disgruntled Korean War veteran Walt Kowalski sets out to reform his neighborhood. A Hmong teenager who tried to steal Kowalski's prized possession, a 1972 Gran Torino. Basically, the kid tries to steal his car, and he becomes friends with the kid. He tries to kind of help him. Well, actually, the sister wants him to befriend the kid. He's this kind of racist old man who lives in this house, and it turns into a revenge film where he has to get back at some of the people in the neighborhood, but it's got kind of a different vibe than those movies do. It has one of the best endings that I really don't want to give away and spoil, because it's such a great ending. It plays off of his Westerns and the Dirty Harry movies. If this was his last movie, this could have been an amazing final performance for Clint Eastwood. I think at the time he was thinking it might be his last, but it didn't end up being his last. But Gran Torino is a freaking awesome movie. If you're into Clint Eastwood movies, check it out. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore. I mean, this is just his body of work is so huge, but Clint Eastwood is the friggin' man. And if you've never watched Clint Eastwood movies, there are so many different genres to get into. Just pick one in a genre that you like and get started, and you'll just zip through his career. I mean, I grew up on these movies, and over the years I've become a huge Clint Eastwood fan. He's an amazing filmmaker, a great actor. not much else can be said about him. Like, he's just a great all-around entertainer. But yeah, so that's about all I got to say today. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Video Village Roadkill Entertainment podcast. Watch some Clint Eastwood movies. You can check out our stuff, of course, at jburn75.wix.com/Roadkill Entertainment. That's our Roadkill Entertainment site. Come by, check out our movies, check out our stuff. You know, we're doing our own horror thing, and I've been making short films forever. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and watch Clint Eastwood movies, and I'll talk to you next month. Not sure what we got on tap yet for next month, but we might have something a little different. Not sure. I might bring my buddy Mike back, and we'll do something like that. But yeah, well, thanks for listening, and take care.